Welcome to the crash course in Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish year. While the Sabbath is the holiest day of the week, the Torah refers to Yom Kippur as Shabbat Shabbaton, the Sabbath of Sabbaths. It's understood in Jewish tradition as a spiritual homecoming for the Jewish people. What's the source of Yom Kippur's sanctity, and what can we do to make the most of this holy day? Yom Kippur originates with the tragic story of the golden calf. After our liberation from Egypt, the miracles at the sea, and then the revelation of Mount Sinai, the Jewish people stood transformed as God's treasured nation. We are about to realize our destiny as we had just entered a covenant with God. And then we broke it. After only 40 days, what happened? Moses had ascended Mount Sinai to receive the Torah for 40 days, and the people miscalculated the time of his return. When he didn't come down as they anticipated, they panicked, and they built a golden calf and danced around it, and they declared, "This is the God of Israel that took us out of Egypt." Meanwhile, Moses had just received the tablets bearing the Ten Commandments when God informs him that the people are sinning, that he's going to wipe out the nation and rebuild the nation from Moses. Moses has to plead for our survival. He then descends the mountain, sees people dancing around the calf. He smashes the tablets, he destroys the calf, and he goes up the mountain for a total of 80 days to beg forgiveness and to convince God to forge a new relationship with the Jewish people. Finally, Moses ascends the mountain with a second set of tablets, and for the very first time, the Jewish people receive atonement for their sin. That day, forever since, is celebrated as Yom Kippur, which means the Day of Atonement. On Yom Kippur, it doesn't matter how far we've strayed in relationship with God. Yom Kippur envelops every Jew and reaches their inner core. As long as we're sincere, then we too, like the Jews of the desert, can reestablish our pristine relationship with Him. That's because atonement is different than forgiveness. When you forgive someone, you're willing for the relationship to go on, but you still remember their misdeed. It's always there in the back of your mind. Atonement literally wipes away the transgression, as if it never happened. It gives you a fresh new start. That's why only God can atone. All we have to do is be willing to do some spiritual work. Tradition teaches that during the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, God is especially near to us. It's a specific window when it's easier to choose to become our ideal selves. We can ask for forgiveness and say goodbye to past mistakes and take on new behaviors and mitzvahs that we want to live up to. It's a time for quantum growth, so take advantage of it. It's also important to ask for forgiveness from family and friends. Yom Kippur only addresses your relationship with God. You have to deal with your interpersonal relationships before. During the day leading up to Yom Kippur, there are a number of things to do. It's an ideal time to give charity. Helping others in need is one of the most important spiritual traits to acquire. We also do kaparos, which is an ancient custom of holding a chicken or money over our head and symbolically transferring our spiritual blemishes onto something that will feed the poor and support others. Before the fast begins, we're supposed to have a special festive meal. Tradition teaches that people who partake of this meal are rewarded as if they fasted a second whole day. That's because preparing to have energy for the holiday in such a dignified manner is already a spiritual success. The Torah prohibits 5 things in Yom Kippur. We don't eat or drink or wash ourselves as a way to pull away from our physicality and focus on our spiritual concerns. We often fall for a fleeting, superficial pleasure and give up a moment that could have been transcendent and eternal. We also don't wear leather shoes. Leather shoes provide us with a sense of dignity that at times can turn into empty pride. Yom Kippur is a time to be grounded, to be humbled, to be brought back down to earth. There's also no intimacy, and we don't anoint with oils, which was a luxurious practice done more in the past. Yom Kippur begins with the moving Kol Nidrei Service, which releases us from vows we might have taken upon ourselves. We don't want to go into Yom Kippur with additional personal commitments that we might end up breaking. We also declare that everybody's welcome to participate in the service, as no door is ever closed to a Jew that wants to be part of the community. There are 5 different services throughout Yom Kippur, but they all share the same core, which are the confessions. It's a mitzvah in the Torah to verbally articulate to God one's wrongdoing. It's not enough to think thoughts or feel feelings. Now, there are 3 ingredients to the confession. First, you must say specifically what you did wrong. Secondly, you must express regret, that it hurts you knowing that you committed the wrong. And finally, you must make a commitment not to repeat the mistake in the future. Now, for those behaviors we know you can't change overnight, you should at least have a plan to start working on change. As we say each confession, it's a custom to bend over slightly and to tap your fist against your chest over your heart. This represents a sense of contrition and a recognition that we need to soften our hearts and become more sensitive to the life around us. During the prayers, we review the service that used to be done in the Temple of Jerusalem by the high priest on Yom Kippur. It's the one day a year he was allowed to go into the Holy of Holies, the inner sanctum of the temple that housed the golden ark, which contained both sets of tablets, the tablets that Moses smashed at the time of the golden calf, and the second set of tablets he brought down on Yom Kippur. We also have the Yizkor service, which is a special memorial service set for parents that have passed away. Charity is typically pledged to serve as a merit on their behalf. But the most dramatic part of Yom Kippur is the Neilah service, which means the closing of the gates. As night is about to fall, it's our last chance to effect the decree that God will seal in our lives for the upcoming year. It's a time to see your inner soul through the clear lens that Yom Kippur provides, and to tell God we're committed to live life on His terms, with His wisdom that we were sent here to preserve, fulfill, and shine with. Remember, God doesn't expect us to change overnight, but we can change our life course on this exceptionally holy day. Shana Tova, and may we all be sealed in the Book of Life.